Hello, welcome back to the World Rebalance. In the last episode, we examined the time when China was at the center of the world. This episode examines a moment in time that challenges one of the most deeply held assumptions about global power. When a civilization becomes strong, must it become imperial? In the early 15th century, China possessed the ships, wealth, and capability to dominate the world's oceans. Under the command of Admiral Zheng He, vast fleets sailed across Asia, the Middle East, and East Africa, projecting power on a scale unmatched at the time. Yet, China did not colonize. It did not conquer continents. It did not build a maritime empire. Instead, it demonstrated a different model of influence, one based on prestige, diplomacy, and trade. This episode examines Zheng He's voyages, the reasons behind China's withdrawals from the sea, and what this historical moment might reveal about China's role in the 21st century. Is China following the familiar path of empire or reviving an alternative form of globalization? This episode seeks the answer.
Episode 4 Zheng He and the Alternative Globalization. There is a story the modern world tells itself, a story so familiar that few people ever question it. It goes like this. When a nation becomes wealthy, it inevitably becomes expansionist. When it becomes expansionist, it becomes imperial. And when it becomes imperial, it conquers, it colonizes, it exploits. After all, this is the story of Europe. Portugal rounded Africa. Spain crossed the Atlantic. The Dutch built trading empires. Britain ruled the seas. France carved out colonies. The modern global system was built through conquest, through domination, through extraction, and because the West lived through centuries of this pattern, many assume it must be universal. So when China rises, the same conclusion appears inevitable. Aircraft carriers mean invasion. Overseas ports mean empire. Infrastructure landing means colonialism. Ambition means aggression. But history is rarely that simple, because there was once a moment when China had the power to dominate the seas, and yet it did not. That moment belongs to one of the most remarkable figures in maritime history, Admiral Zheng He, the fleet that could have ruled the world. In the early 15th century, the Ming Dynasty launched an extraordinary series of naval expeditions. The man chosen to command them was Zheng He, a Muslim eunuch admiral serving the Yongle Emperor. Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He led 7 massive voyages across the seas. His fleet sailed through Southeast Asia, across the Indian Ocean, to India, Persia, Arabia, and the eastern coast of Africa. This was not exploration in the European sense. This was an armada. Some historical accounts describe Zheng He's treasure ships as far larger than any European vessel of the time. The fleet contained hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of men, sailors, soldiers, engineers, doctors, interpreters, officials, merchants. They carried silk, porcelain, gold, and imperial gifts. But above all, they carried a message. China was not simply another kingdom. China was a civilization at the center of the world, a path not taken. Had the Ming emperors wished, they could have created the first global maritime empire. They had the ships, they had the manpower, they had the wealth, they had the organizational capacity. Europe, at that moment in history, did not. China could have seized ports across the Indian Ocean. It could have established fortified colonies. It could have reshaped global trade centuries before Europe. But it did not. Instead, Zheng He's fleets behaved differently. They offered gifts. They established diplomatic ties. They demonstrated imperial prestige. But they did not build settler colonies. They did not conquer continents. They did not attempt to remake foreign societies. And after the 7th voyage, the Ming court made a decision that still astonishes historians. The expedition stopped. The fleets were dismantled. China turned inward. It is one of the great what-if moments in world history. The mindset behind the voyages. To understand this decision, we must understand the mindset of Ming China. Europe at that time was fragmented and competitive. Small kingdoms fought constantly. Resources were limited. Wealth was uneven. Expansion was a race for survival. But China was different. China was already vast, already wealthy, already unified. It did not look outward with hunger. It looked outward with confidence. Zheng He's voyages were not designed to conquer. They were designed to demonstrate prestige. They were diplomatic theater on a global scale. The fleets carried gifts, not settlers, officials, not missionaries. They sought recognition, not domination. When force was necessary, it was used. But conquest was not the objective. The goal was influence. Without empire, a different kind of power. Zheng He's voyages reveal something important. Power does not always express itself through conquest. In Western history, power often meant territorial expansion. Empires planted flags, built forts, controlled land. China's historical instinct was often different. Its instinct was to create a world where others came to it, to trade, to learn, to align. This kind of influence is quieter, but often more durable. Conquest creates resentment. Influence creates dependence. Conquest requires constant force. Influence can operate through economic gravity. Zheng He's fleet was not the beginning of a colonial empire. It was the symbol of a Chinese world system, the great turning inward. And then it ended. After the seventh voyage, China withdrew from the seas. The reasons remain debated. Some historians point to court politics. Confucian officials distrusted the eunuch-led naval expeditions. Others point to economics. China's wealth came from agriculture and internal stability. Still others point to northern threats. The Mongols remained a danger. Whatever the cause, the consequences were immense. Because while China withdrew, Europe advanced. Within a century, European fleets began to dominate the same waters Zheng He had sailed. But they came with a different purpose. They came with cannon, they came with colonization, they came with extraction, and over time, those maritime empires reshaped the world. The modern global system, with Western languages, Western finance, and Western dominance, emerged from that shift. History might have taken another path, but it did not. Zheng He as a mirror. Why does Zheng He matter today? Because China is once again stepping outward, across Asia, across Africa, across Europe. Ports are being built, railways are being constructed, trade routes are expanding, and once again, observers ask the same question. Is China building an empire? The Zheng He precedent suggests another possibility. Perhaps China is building a system of connectivity, not colonies, but corridors, not occupation, but integration. In the modern world, power is no longer only about territory, it is about flows. The flow of goods, the flow of energy, the flow of data, the flow of capital. Control the flows and you shape the system. The new treasure fleet. If Zheng He's fleet symbolized Ming China's outward reach, then the Belt and Road Initiative may symbolize the modern version. The comparison is not exact. The Belt and Road is not a fleet of ships. It is a vast network of infrastructure, railways, ports, pipelines, power stations, digital networks, industrial zones. But the logic is similar. It is a demonstration of capability, a projection of prestige, a declaration that China's reach extends far beyond East Asia. For many developing nations, this offers something they have long lacked: connectivity, the physical infrastructure required for growth, roads, ports, electricity, transport. This is not charity, it is strategy. but strategy can still transform economies. Prestige. Instead of conversion, Western empires often exported ideology, language, religion, political systems to modernize men becoming more like Europe. China's approach is often different. China rarely demands that others adopt Chinese culture. It does not export a universal religion. It does not insist that nations rewrite their constitutions. Instead, the message is simpler. We will build, you will trade, we will connect, you will benefit, and influence will follow. This resembles the older Chinese tradition of prestige-based hierarchy, power expressed through connectivity, the fear of a different world. Western anxiety about China is not only about power, it is about centrality. For centuries, the West defined the rules of the global system: trade rules, financial rules, diplomatic norms, cultural prestige. China's rise challenges that monopoly. It suggests that modernity may take another path, and that possibility is deeply unsettling. Because if prosperity can emerge without Western political systems, then the West loses something even more important than power. It loses its claim to inevitability. The alternative globalization. Zheng He represents a road history did not take, a form of global influence based not on conquest, but on prestige, trade, and connectivity. Today, a similar model may be re-emerging, a global system shaped not by Western fleets, but by Chinese infrastructure, not by colonies, but by networks, not by gunboats, but by economic gravity. It may not be morally perfect, but it may be less violent. And in a world exhausted by war, that difference matters. Closing. In the 15th century, China sailed outward and then turned back. In the 21st century, China is sailing outward again. But this time, there is no sign of retreat. The treasure fleet has changed form. It is no longer made of wooden ships. It is made of rail lines, ports, power grids, fiber optic cables, and industrial corridors stretching across continents. The oceans are open once more, and China is moving across them again, quietly, patiently, with the machinery of civilizational expansion. In the next episode, we will step forward into the modern era and examine the extraordinary acceleration of China's rise in the past few decades. A transformation so rapid that it has reshaped the balance of the world.